I have a dream that my four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Oh, hello, Alex. Where was our beginning? What happened to our normal beginning here?
This is such a great beginning. I thought, let's just leave it as is.
Welcome, everyone, to Great Convos, where we always say, whether you agree or disagree, you can always find great convos. I'm Roger Caesar, and that gentleman over there.
Hi, I'm Alexandre, and today we've got some very interesting titles, and I realized that I made a little typo. Let me just fix that here. I'm not the dream guy, I'm the dream guy. Roger, you are the real guy. Roger, why are we here today?
Well, first and foremost, Alex, we are here because we want to discuss one of the greatest speeches ever delivered in history. Now, we have seen a tremendous amount of wonderfully written and delivered speeches throughout the course of time. But today we're going to be specific on one particular speech, and we're going to talk about it from the perspective of what we saw in terms of the content, how it was delivered, and the impact that it had on society as a whole. Alex, give us advice on Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, I Have a Dream.
Well, I Have a Dream, which interestingly enough was not the official title of that speech when it started being delivered in 1963, in August of 1963. Now, it's absolutely fascinating to study this speech, not only for the speech, but for the effect it had and for the context in which it was delivered. Now, of course, this was 1963. We're in August of 1963 during the civil rights movement in the United States. The Black people in the United States have not reached equality under the law, even though there have been some advancements. And this is how his speech starts, by reminding us that even though 100 years before there was the Emancipation Proclamation by Abraham Lincoln, there are no longer slaves, but there's no equality yet. Roger, what is the most interesting thing you can mention about the text, about the script, the words?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say this. Thank you to everyone who is joining us. Welcome again to our loyal listeners. As I always say, you could have been anywhere, but you're here with us, and we appreciate it. And we also want you to chime in as well. I think one of the greatest parts of our show is when we have our listeners chiming in and talking about it from their perspective. So please join in the conversation. Alex, this is one of the speeches, and I'm going to go back a little bit because as a Black man, this was one of those speeches that we were ingrained to know about and learn and hear and let it sink in our own history. And I remember hearing it many times throughout the course of my life. But you know what's so funny, Alex? There was a long period of time that I haven't listened to it. And of course, we know the I Have a Dream part and everything like that. As a speaker now, and after all the training that we have gone through, listening to this speech this time around was completely different. And maybe it was because it was no longer about the emotional tie to it, but now looking at it from the constructual side of it. And I will say that this was really written extremely well. And when we break it down for everyone here, you will see things that probably when you were listening to the speech before, you didn't realize. One of the biggest things I will add to this is that the I Have a Dream part is only literally probably about 3 minutes long in a 17-minute long speech. And yet that is the portion that most people only remember, and they don't realize that prior to that section, there is a lot of juicy information and sound bites that were given by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in this particular speech.
Right. Now, what we heard just before we came on was this particular passage. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That is probably the line that is most remembered and most quoted. This is one of the things that make a great speech that is remembered and repeated and quoted throughout history.
Right.
John F. Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Winston Churchill, we will fight on the beaches, we will fight on the battlefields, we will fight, we'll never give up.
Yep.
These are usually lines that are crafted very meticulously in order to have the maximum effect.
Of course.
This is something that we can ask ourselves, Roger. We occasionally go on stage and speak in front of people, maybe not 250,000 people, like
we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
One day, I have a dream. I will speak in front of 250,000 people, my friends.
Exactly.
But even if we're speaking in front of 220 or 200 people, what can we do to have those repeatable tweetables, the very quotable part of your speech that can be repeated and remembered? Because the real impact of a speech, of a presentation, is not only on that day, but it's when your message is repeated later on by those people who have heard it.
Well, we've seen this in this particular speech, and we both learned a new word that was taught to us because of this, because we were doing our work and our studies on this speech. And the word that we want to put, and you can put it in the chat as well, Alex, is anaphora. Anaphora. And it's, we have usually dubbed this when we're speaking in repeating a certain word or phrase so that the audience remembers it throughout our speech. But the reality is that is the technical term for it. And in this particular speech, we have seen many versions of that particular usage. Now is the time. He says that about 4 times in this speech when he's referring to something that he wants people to understand in terms of the now. He also says it when he says, we can never be satisfied. And he repeats that line as well in this speech. Now, these are all before we even get to the I have a dream, which is another one that he repeats over and over again. I had another one here. Some of the lines that he used in this speech that were, again, the metaphors. And this is another part of it. The metaphors that he uses in this speech are amazing. One of them that he says is that we've come to our nation capital to cash a check.
Right, cashing a check. The metaphor. So he comes back to that. The metaphor of cashing a check. When the country was founded, the founders gave us a check, but the bounce was checked, or it came with insufficient funds. This is where we are today. We have yet to be able to cash that check.
That's right. That's right. So he's using the metaphor of the check in terms of the promise that was given to the people at that time or before that it was given to them, and it hadn't been. That's what I'm looking for. Fulfilled. Thank you very much. I lost my train of thought there.
Yeah.
It hadn't been fulfilled in that period of time. So he uses that as a metaphor in the speech. So a lot of those, if you go through it, you'll see that there's quite a few metaphors. The promissory note, right? The promissory note. He describes the Declaration of Independence as a promissory note to be given the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Let's go back to the portion of I Have a Dream. As you say, it's about 3 minutes long. It's the most remembered part of the speech. But here's the thing. the video that we showed you at the very beginning, you see how he's looking at the audience. Let's just look at that clip again. Let's just look at that clip and see how he's looking at the audience as he's sharing this.
I have a dream that my four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Contrast this to previous portions of the speech where he has his script, he's got his draft in front of him, he has paper in front of him, and he's looking down. Now it's what speakers do occasionally. They've got their speech and they want to make sure that, as we've said, because the speech is so well crafted, they want to make sure that they say every word correctly. So he's looking down. And please do look at that speech again, or for the first time if you haven't seen it in full. We can put a direct link in the comments later on. But look at it in full and see the difference between the first 10 minutes until he gets to that portion where suddenly he looks up. Now, it was not planned in that speech.
No, it wasn't. And people have to know this. People have to know this part. So yes, get into the historical portion of this for those who maybe did not realize.
This is absolutely fascinating. And this may be, Roger, maybe why it is so memorable, that portion of the speech. It was not planned. The speech title was Normalcy Never Again. I think that's it. Normalcy Never Again. Not as catchy as I Have a Dream. But that was the title of the speech. And apparently the word dream did not appear in that speech at all. So according to the testimonials, he's about to finish the speech, and then Mahalia Jackson, who is a gospel singer who sang 2 songs just before the speech, screams or shouts at Martin Luther King Jr., "Tell him about the dream, Martin."
Yes.
He finishes his sentences, he pushes the text aside, and that's when he starts. I have a dream.
Yep.
And
the remainder of that speech is himself expressing his dream. Now, we truly believe that it may have been from another speech or something that he had written before, but the fact is that when you look at the totality of that speech, you directly see when he goes from his notes to just speaking to the people.
Now, Roger, you know as well as I do that even when we do seem to speak off the cuff or extemporaneously, we've been thinking about these things before. And if Mahalia Jackson said, "Tell him about the dream," it's because she heard him speak about it before.
That's right.
And in fact, just 2 months before, MLK Jr. was delivering a speech in front of, it was in Detroit, maybe only 25,000 people. Mm-hmm. But he had that part of that speech, I Have a Dream. So almost, I can't say word for word, but the content is there.
Right.
The difference is because he didn't have it in front of him, he had to go from his memory, from his own thought process, and you can see there's a slight hesitation in the way that he's delivering, which to me adds authenticity, because he's trying to remember what he's talked about, but he's also he wants to make sure that he's delivering it correctly, but also because he doesn't have that, what do you call it, a crutch? He doesn't have the crutch in front of him. He's just delivering it naturally. Yeah. That might be one major key. If that part had been in the original draft, and if he had been reading it and looking down at his notes, would the impact have been the same, Roger?
And there you go. And that's something that we can discuss for an eternity. The idea that in that very moment, the connection, and this is something about speakers that we talk about as well, the connection. Yes, the portion prior to that was exhilarating. It was uplifting. It rose people to their feet. You saw a lot of clapping in it. But in that moment, he was connecting directly to the audience from something that was near and dear to him. And you could tell, even though it may have not have been the word for word from the original speech that he said, the I have a dream in, the reality is we got it. And that, if you ever look on YouTube or anywhere that you want to look for the video, you will see a 7-minute version of this speech. And that's the part that normally people see, all the way to the part where he says, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. And he walks off stage. That's the portion that people only seem to know. But I encourage you to go back and really watch this speech. Again, I was talking to you already about the metaphors and everything. There's another one that I wanted to share here, where he says the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood.
The imagery, beautiful.
Beautiful imagery, right? Like, this is what we're talking about when you really analyze this speech and see it. And you know, this season we're talking about your voice has power. Well, this is how it has power. Even in the word, the context of the words that we use when we are speaking, how is it that it's delivered to a point that your audience absolutely remembers you for an eternity? And we're seeing that with this particular speech.
Yeah. Let's speak a bit about delivery, the style of delivery of Martin Luther King Jr. Is the type of speech that is what you would see in a gospel church. Is that how you would say it?
It's like a preacher. It's like a preacher. Yeah, his style.
The style that he uses, which has a lot of answering from the audience, and I suspect that the audience there was also really answering, almost like singing to a gospel. Well, they had just listened to a gospel singer just minutes before, so they were in that mood also of answering. So when he was using those images, sometimes you would have people in the audience say yeah and answering, and yeah, you say it. So by the time he goes to his expected ending of the speech, he's thinking, I see where this is going. I see where this could go. So it's the perfect opportunity when he's reminded about, tell him about the speech, Martin. So by that time, he knows, okay, I've got them. This is what I can do. Not only to be remembered. That's not the point. It's so that the message is remembered, and so that the audience can leave there with hope. That's what he was going for, giving them the hope that one day it will be better. It's not right now, but it will happen. And the message, not only of hope, but of love. Does he use the word love? We should not answer with hate, but with solidarity, but with understanding. So all these key words that make sure that he's not rising up an army or a militia to go to be violently opposed, but a peaceful movement rooted in hope for a better future.
Alex, I also want to touch on the end of the speech. I mean, obviously there's so much to unpack that we don't have the full time right now, and we've gotten some comments here in the chat, and we'll throw them up here as well. But look, the reality is that we as speakers, we say this all the time: the last words leave the lasting impression on our audience, right? And isn't it funny that the way in which he crafted the ending, even though it may have not been the original end of this speech, and also, Alex, if you can, below, maybe even let us know about who has the original speech or had it. Who had the original and how that happened. Maybe you can go into that really quickly, but I want to say that free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last, because this speech was crafted, and if you don't know, look at it again, a past, a present, and a future. He crafts it that way so that you can see chronologically where he wants you to go. So he starts with the past with Abraham Lincoln and talking about the past and how it used to be. He then goes to the present time and wanting to see change within the different nations or the different states, and then ends it by talking about our future, where we should be and where we want to be.
That's how we would usually want to craft a speech, is by starting with a clear structure that is easy to follow for your audience, but also easy for you to remember, and for you to follow it yourself. So that it's because if it's not clear for you, it certainly won't be clear for the audience. So that's a good catch. Okay, you asked where is the speech? So the physical paper, after the speech, he goes off stage, but it would seem that a young college basketball player asked him, "Oh, could I have these papers? You know, it's just paper, right?" And MLK just gave it to him. Yeah, here you go. I forget his name, but in 2021, he donated that document to his old college, I think Villanova University. And apparently he was offered $3 million for that document, and he refused in order for him to be able to donate it. So that document is now preciously kept, and it's not easy to get a hold of. You need to have special permission. So if anybody here listening is able to get a glimpse at it, not only is that original draft there, but the handwritten notes from MLK on that document as well. Fascinating to read about that.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. I mean, again, we cannot emphasize how important it is to truly structure your speech in a way that is going to be memorable and leave a lasting impact on your audience. This was just one of many that we have seen. And Alex and I are going to go through others from time to time, but today we wanted to touch on this one. We both felt it was necessary to try to start with this because it's one of the most decorated speeches delivered in the course of history. Alex, any last thoughts about this here?
Yeah, before I give those last thoughts, I'd like our listeners to write in the chat what are some of the memorable speeches that they've heard, historical or otherwise. Either speeches or lines from speeches that you remember that have a lasting impact on you and or on humanity. Personally, I've got 2 books. Do I have them here? I don't even have them here. Where are they? I think they're upstairs. I have 2 books that I absolutely love. It's one is 50 speeches that have marked the Second World War, and the other one is 100 speeches that have marked the 20th century. And of course, that speech is in that book. So it's so cool to be able to revisit these speeches and realize that when we speak, when we are on stage in front of an audience, we can have a lasting impact. Now, we may not have the audience of Martin Luther King Jr., or we may not have the title of president or prime minister of a country, but we can still have a lasting impact on those that to whom we speak. So I think, Roger, a big takeaway that we want to have today is remembering that great speeches are not made by accident. They are created meticulously to make sure that the words are right, the structure is well done, and that the delivery is on point. So, Roger, I want you to remember this, whether you are speaking in the plains of Saskatchewan, or on the mountaintops of British Columbia, or in the vast forests of Northern Ontario. Is your speech having a lasting impact?
I love it. I love it. And you know what? I think this is your mom, isn't it?
Yes.
Hi, Mom. Hello, Mama. We're going to answer that. Alex, we'll answer this question maybe at another time, but I like this, and we can talk about this when it comes to our speeches. But thank you, Mama, for chiming in.
Let's answer it very quickly, because this is a question that comes oftentimes and we can have endless debates. The question was, why do Toastmasters have to memorize their speeches? The answer is they don't.
They don't.
Let's leave it at that for the moment. There is no
That's right.
requirement to memorize.
Well, we've come to another end of a great conversation, Alex, breaking down one of the great speeches of our time, Dr. Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech. We hope that you will continue to have the conversations with your friends, family, and in your community. Maybe find out what are some of the speeches that you know that have left a lasting impression on you. We didn't get a chance to get a lot of people to chime in on that, but if there are any, maybe you can put it in the chat, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or on LinkedIn, and let us know what are some of the lasting lines or speeches that you have heard as well. Until next week, we hope that you always will remember that, hey, whether you agree or disagree, you can always have great combos. Take care, everyone.
Well said, Roger. Bye-bye.